Alright, Shane Better here at Better House in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It is Monday afternoon, and I just wanted to do kind of a follow-up video about something that is... Alright, Shane Better here at Better House in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and it's Monday afternoon, and I just wanted to take a few moments to do a video for you guys about something that I was talking to a client about recently, something that I believe is really beneficial in obedience or just in relationship with your dog in general. And so the subject of playing tug with your dog, this is something you're going to see if you look at canine handlers. Sometimes you'll see them play tug with their dog, and they'll have maybe a ball on a rope or a bite tug after the dog's done their narcotics or something like that. And sometimes in Schutzen, you'll see it's a sport of tracking obedience and protection. Some of the people will use a tug or a ball on a rope kind of as a reward-based system. Within that sport, sometimes they will maybe start the foundation work with treats, and then after the dog knows the commands and he's just kind of weaned off the treats, they like to use the toys as a motivational based system, and it's a really good thing. And tug in general is something that can help you to build a bond with your dog, just build that relationship, and it becomes a really fun way even to drain your dog. If you got a high-strung dog who's got a ton of prey drive, it's a really beneficial thing. But when we talk about tug, a lot of people run into problems. Their dog is really possessive, they can't get that tug back from them, and if they're playing tug with their dog, that dog ends up booking it to another part of the yard or part of the house, and then they can't get the tug away from the dog, so it becomes a really bad problem. And so how do we fix those things? So consider when you talk about tug, there's a few things that you got to keep in mind. Of course, one that sounds so simple, and it's not always so simple for many people, but it's to teach the dog to out. So there's multiple ways you can teach this. It's not going to work. Maybe a certain way it's not going to work for every dog, bear in mind. But for some dogs, it is so simple as the dog's got the toy in its mouth and you offer a treat in response. And through repetition, as the dog starts to out, you start to implement the word to out. Or in German, we would say to aus. But eventually the dog will start to release. If you got my dogs, they are the type of dogs who would actually take the toy over food any day. I don't care what it is, for the most part, they would rather have that toy than they would food. Well, okay, you got to switch your method. For some dogs, you might have another toy that's a very high value toy to them, and you use that as a means to teach them to out. So you throw one toy, for example, if we're playing fetch, and the dog goes and fetches the toy, and then he brings it back, and you show the next toy, and then the dog will sometimes immediately release that toy. And then over repetition, as the dog keeps doing it, you start to implement the word again to out, and they start to learn it. It doesn't work for every dog. So you move to another step maybe. Some people like to use the e-collar. I'm not against e-collars. They may be needed for this command for certain dogs. And we might explain that in another video, but the method that you might see, as we're going to demonstrate later in this video, is where we make the prey object, the toy, we make it dead. And so it becomes this immovable force. When that dog has been playing tug with you, you stop it in its tracks. You're holding it, and that dog is realizing this toy is not doing anything. And you're going to hold it until finally that dog releases the toy. Well, continued repetition, you can either say out or out each time before he's going to release, or you can just do that continued repetition, and when the dog starts to out each time, after a few times you start to implement the command word. And so that's a way, that's what we're going to demonstrate a little later with one of the shepherds here, and just how to start that command. So that's important. So teaching the dog to out. And it's important because a lot of dogs are going to run off. They're going to hold on to that, and they're going to get kind of possessive over their toy. And you don't want your dog possessive over a toy towards you. So we've got to teach the dog how to out on command. All right, and as you consider that, there's something else very important when you're talking about teaching your dog to out. In the Schutzen sport, a lot of people are accustomed to taking the dog's collar and basically choking him out. And you'll see some canine handlers do the same thing to choke the dog out off of the bad guy. And I'm not personally a fan of that method. I'm familiar with it in the past, but I think there's a better way to do it. And like what we were just talking about. And a lot of times the whole purpose of that, maybe in Schutzen, is to kind of elevate the prey drive, build it up, build frustration, and make the dog want the prey object even more. Well, that's a whole different discussion. But sometimes when people try to teach the out command, they're pulling up on that collar, they're choking the dog out, they're saying out, they're yelling it at the top of their lungs, and then the dog eventually outs because he's choked out, and then the toy's put away. And so then that dog has got a lot of frustration. The prey drive is building maybe, but the dog's kind of thinking in his head, I'm not getting that toy back. So it kind of becomes a frustration. That dog's going to want to hold on to it even more, and it becomes more difficult for you as an owner. So it's important, if you're going to teach the dog to out, again, using the method to make it dead, when that dog outs, you're going to actually re-engage that game of tug with your dog. And so when the dog outs, you'll hold the tug to the side, preferably at a level state. I sometimes will pull it back this way towards me. I don't recommend that unless you know your dog and you know yourself and how to handle that, just to avoid getting bit somehow. But you're going to let the dog come back at the toy when you give maybe a command, or you pull it back. And when the dog goes to bite, you give the word yes. And it's just what we would use as a marker word. And we'll talk about what marker words deal with in another video. So keep that in mind. But again, it's important to teach the dog to out. It's important in this case to show the dog it doesn't necessarily mean that's the end of the game. But also, when you're playing tug itself, you've got to be the one who's making that toy move. You're giving the game to it. You're making it fun. You don't get too into it, though. Some people get so wound up with their dog playing tug to the point their dog's about hectic and crazy, and especially for young dogs, it can be kind of a problem, and the owners don't know how to handle it. So you engage with it. We'll show you how to do that in the video, just kind of playing the tug, and just you be the source of that game, but don't make it too much and too difficult for your dog. And one of the other important things to mention with that is your dog needs to be able to know to bring it back to you. That's one we might do in a different video. And just to bring it back to you, because a lot of dogs, again, you're playing tug with them and they don't want to bring it back to you at all. And some people may walk their dog around on the leash with the tug in their mouth. Well, we'll talk about that in another video, and just how it can, for some dogs, cause problems with guarding and possessive behavior, just depending on the dog. But you need to be able to get your dog to come back to you, and then you can re-engage in that game of tug and just to really have a lot of fun with it. So there's a lot of things we could talk about with that. But I hope the next part of this video will be helpful as we show these things being demonstrated. I know one of the recent videos I did just a little basic obedience, really not much, and then a little tug work. And with that tug work, I'll state something in mind that was seen in that video, which you'll see me do this time, is that when you're going to play tug with your dog, you don't just walk around carrying it through the house or carrying it outside and then then just starting to get your dog to play tug. Don't even have that tug visible. But in my case, I might have like some type of pouch or something, or maybe put it in my belt, or just whatever, and have it hidden, though, maybe in your pocket. Have it hidden, and when your dog's not looking at you, get their attention. And when you get their attention, then you engage them in the game of tug, and then that's when it becomes that thing. You start to grasp their attention. Then you engage in that game of tug. It's just a really fun thing to do with your dog. So you're going to hear people kind of make the statements that tug is a bad thing to play with your dog because it teaches your dog to be dominant over you, and it'll cause relationship issues between you and your dog. And I'll tell you, it's a bunch of malarkey. Tug is one of the best things you can do with your dog if you do it properly. And so that's what I want to teach you how to do, and we'll show you that by demonstration to you in just a moment. So we'll go ahead, since I won't be talking so much in that part of the video. I'll just mention if there's anything you guys need help with in relation to that even. I would love to help you, and I would love to show you what to do. So contact me if you have any need in that regard. And as always, thank you guys so much.
Let's house. Good. No. Yes. Let's house. Good. No. Yes. Let's house. Good. Yes.